Good morning, class. Today is day 3 of reading Fahrenheit 451 by Ray Bradbury. And last night for homework, you should have read up until page 52, I believe. And a lot of stuff happened in this section of reading last night. We found out some pretty unfortunate news that Clarice has passed away. She was killed by a reckless driver. We know that people in this society, with their advanced technology, drive super fast. They're super reckless because they don't really have much to live for. And unfortunately, Clarice, our little friend, she was unfortunately killed because of this. So that actually brings me to our bell ringer for today. So you can grab that at the front of the room and go ahead and take about 5 minutes or so. Your question today is, what sets Clarice apart from the other characters in the story? Do you think this is a good thing or a bad thing, and why? So I'll give you about 5 minutes to write down your answers on your bell ringer, and I'll collect those at the end of class whenever you guys are finished up. And of course, whenever you're done, you can just set your pencil down and move your bell ringer into the corner of your desk. So this would take about 5 minutes. I would expect the students to write that she was very different from the other characters in the story. She was pretty much the only thing like good in this society. She cared about being happy, she cared about others' happiness, she was interested in the people around her, all things that the other people in this society, especially for example, like Montag's wife, does not they don't have these same characteristics. And Montag, noticed this, and this was really something that kind of jump started Montag into feeling that his line of work was not morally correct, and he was going to be branching out from here and probably going to explore the rest of the book as we see why the society is the way that it is. So whenever the 5 minutes were up, I'm gonna put up a Menti for the students. This is just a quick one, like I just want them to type their little answers in really quick so that way I can see the responses, see that everybody's participating. We don't really have to discuss it. I think I'll have it posted up on the board so that way everybody can see it. Well, like I'll highlight a couple of the good ones. Maybe if something needs redirection, then I would also talk about that. But beyond that, then we would just go into the rest of my presentation for today. Let me see where we are starting here. Mm. All right, so we would be talking about civil disobedience because at the end of the chapter, another thing that we saw was that Montag has stolen a book from one of the houses that they were raiding, and he's hiding it under his pillow, and Beatty is at his door. He's in his house right now, and Montag knows that that pillow is the only thing hiding the book from him. And of course, Mildred is acting oblivious to everything, and she's kind of, "Hey, let me fix your pillow for you." And Montag is like, "No, please don't." And he just wants her to ignore it, but she doesn't. People in this society, they don't know how to read the room correctly. So we're finally seeing some civil disobedience from Montag. And what civil disobedience really is, it's the refusal to obey the demands or commands of a government or occupying power without resorting to violence or active measures of opposition. Its usual purpose is to force concessions from the government or occupying power. So, obviously, in this society, the way that we're seeing civil disobedience is people that choose to keep the books, even though they know that they're outlawed, and if they're found them, they will be burned. And unfortunately, like one of the women we saw in the book, sometimes your life will get risked because of it as well. It's illegal. They're trying to keep people from uh, reaching the information that these books have. So this is just a quick little video that I would show. It's only a minute long. I'm not going to show it for the purposes of this quick lesson plan, but it's just a minute long video kind of going over civil disobedience and also where it's seen in our nation's history, because obviously that's a big part of our history is civil disobedience and standing up when things are not right. So I think that's important to show the students. Another thing that was really important, and that's going to be another part of my direct instruction, is I'm going to read just a small part of what I would read in class again, for the purposes of just being quick 20 minutes on here. But that is about illusions. This book is full of illusions, especially because we see Beatty make illusions constantly. And you kind of wonder, if people aren't allowed to know literature and have access to books, why does Beatty know all of these references? And illusions are only really important when you catch them when you're reading, so it can be difficult if you don't know what they're talking about. So, and they can be implied or direct references. More often than not, they're implied, but in this book, there are some direct references, and I think those are like the most important ones. The other stuff is kind of just like hinting towards the storyline, and then the direct references are really stuff about why these books are banned and, why everything is the way that it is. So, in short, an allusion is a figure of speech that references a famous person, place, event, or literary work. Allusions are usually, yes, like I said, implied or direct. In literature, writers use allusions to link their pieces with another well-known work and evoke creative associations in the reader's mind, like I was saying before. So we'll talk more about allusions once I read the chapter from the book. Another big part of this lesson is going to be censorship. Obviously, this whole book is about censorship. And what censorship really is the suppression or prohibition of any parts of books, films, news, etc., that are considered obscene, politically unacceptable, or a threat to society. So, of course, in this instance, we're talking about books. Right here, this might be real. I'm not positive, but it's like join your neighbors, and I feel like this is something you would see right on the walls or whatever in the society. So for right now, I'm going to stop the presentation and go over to the other video and read a passage from the book. All right, hi guys. I am going to continue my direct instruction, and I'm going to be reading just a little passage from the book. And this is just a shortened version of what I would actually read in class, just for the time's sake of this only being 20 minutes. So I'm going to be reading from page 55, and just for some context for you guys, we are at a part in the book where everything's kind of like coming to a head, and Montag finally stole a book even though he's not supposed to, and his boss is at his house, and he's kind of like looking around but not really, so he's trying to hide the book. And this is Beatty, his boss's kind of like monologue about everything that's going on. So I would just read this aloud to the class. Beatty leaned forward in the faint mist of smoke from his pipe. What more easily explained and natural? With school turning out more runners, jumpers, racers, tinkerers, grabbers, snatchers, flyers, and swimmers instead of examiners, critics, knowers, and imaginative creators? The word intellectual, of course, became the swear word it deserved to be. You always dread the unfamiliar. Surely you remember the boy in your own school class who was exceptionally bright, did most of the reciting and answering, while the others sat like so many leaden idols hating him. And wasn't it this bright boy you selected for your beatings and tortures after hours? Of course it was. We must all be alike, not everyone born free and equal as the Constitution says, but everyone made equal, each man the image of every other. Then all are happy, for there are no mountains to make them cower, to judge themselves against. So a book is a loaded gun in the house next door. Burn it. Take the shot from the weapon. Breach man's mind. Who knows who might be the target of the well-read man? Me? I won't stomach them for a minute. And so when the houses were finally fireproofed completely all over the world, you were correct in your assumption the other night. There was no longer a need of firemen for the old purposes. They were given the new job as custodians of our peace of mind, the focus of our understandable and rightful dread of being inferior, official censors, judges, and executors. That's you, Montag, and that's me. The door to the parlor opened, and Mildred stood there looking in at them, looking at Beatty and then at Montag. Behind her, walls of the room were flooded with green and yellow and orange fireworks, sizzling and bursting to some music composed almost completely of trap drums, tom-toms, and cymbals. Her mouth moved, and she was saying something, but the sound covered it. Beatty knocked his pipe into the palm of his pink hand, studied the ashes as if they were a symbol to be diagnosed, and searched for meaning. You must understand that our civilization is so vast that we can't have our minorities upset and stirred. Ask yourself, what do we want in this country, above all? People want to be happy, isn't that right? Haven't you heard it all your life? I want to be happy, people say. Well, aren't they? Don't we keep them moving? Don't we give them fun? That's all we live for, isn't it? For pleasure, for titillation? And you must admit, our culture provides plenty of these. Yes, Montag could lip read what Mildred was saying in the doorway. He tried not to look at her mouth because then Beatty might turn and read what was there too. Colored people don't like Black Little Sambo. Burn it. White people don't feel good about Uncle Tom's Cabin. Burn it. Someone's written a book on tobacco and cancer of the lungs. The cigarette people are weeping. Burn the book. Serenity, Montag. Peace, Montag. Take your fight outside. Better yet, into the incinerator. Funerals are unhappy and pagan. Eliminate them too. 5 minutes after a person is dead, he's on his way to the big flu. The incinerators serviced by helicopters all over the country. 10 minutes after a man's death, a speck of black dust. Let's not quibble over individuals with memoriams. Forget them. Burn everything. Fire is bright and fire is clean. So that will be the end of that reading. Okay, guys, so following my direct instruction and reading aloud to the class a bit, I'm going to distribute this handout to them, and these are going to be some of the comprehension and analysis questions that I would have the students answer based on what they've read thus far. They also will have their reading guides that they'll have been working on. So some of these questions they may have like already encountered before, and also I read that passage intentionally to go along with this questionnaire. So the first question is Montag's civil disobedience justified? Why or why not? Obviously that is kind of like the big question, but I really want the students to start thinking about this because further along down into the lesson plan, I am planning on doing like a miniature debate, and I'm going to have that civil disobedience can be justified and civil disobedience can't be justified, and kind of have the students go at it. So when I collect this paper, it'll help me get an idea of like if some students are kind of on the fence, if maybe they could find some ways to back up one side versus the other, because obviously a lot of people are probably going to side with Montag. They're going to say that it is justified, but I think it'll be a nice challenge for them to kind of have to argue from the opposite point of view as well. So obviously the answer for that question is going to be varied, but I think that the students would know good things that they can back it up with. And then the second question is, how is technology affecting the characters of the story? Think of the differences between Mildred and Clarice. So keep in mind, obviously you guys aren't reading this book right now, but Clarice was just killed by a piece of technology. I mean, the people here are not using technology. I mean, they're using technology similarly to us. Like right now, they mentioned this in the book, the headphones and stuff, but it's very interesting. They use these huge parlor walls, so that way it's like a huge TV essentially, and they can just distract themselves from anything else. That way they don't have to have a conversation with their friend or their husband. They can just watch another family have a conversation, even if it really doesn't matter at all. So obviously I would like the students to come up with some of those ideas, and also reference that Clarice, like, she talked about books, like she was interested. She didn't want to be just going and being surrounded by technology all the time. And unfortunately, technology was like her demise. So that's another thing. The third question is, in this story, why is it so important to ensure people are not reading books? Look at pages 55 to 58. So that's literally the passage that I just read, and I would have read it to my students as well. So they should have those answers pretty ready in their mind, but they can look back at those pages just in case. So that should be a pretty easy one for them to answer. Even if it's not completely concrete answered, they get the gist of it, especially too with the direct instruction and talking about censorship as well. What are some of the ways Bradbury uses fire as symbolism for both destruction and purification? So this one's a little bit more complicated. The students would definitely have to look back into their into their books, but again, that was also mentioned in the passage that I just read aloud. We can hear, we know that Beatty mentions, like, he says, let's see, fire is bright and fire is clean, but obviously up until now in this book, fire has not been clean. Like, fire is used to destruct. So I think it'd be interesting to see the students answer that question. How does Montag's relationship with Mildred reflect the themes of isolation and conformity? This is an interesting one. Montag and his wife's relationship is really interesting because they don't remember when they met each other. They don't sleep in the same bed. It's very different to what, like, your idea of a loving relationship should be. And you kind of understand that this is the norm for this society, and the students will also recognize that, and they'll be able to see that Mildred is just like the making of her surroundings. She is just going with the flow. We very early on in the book, we see her have a suicide attempt, and she just brushes it off like it's nothing at all. Obviously, Montag's worried for her, and she just doesn't understand it. So we can really see that their relationship really reflects the way that the society tries to just ignore anything that's not gonna make people happy, even though we find out people are not happy regardless. Their work is not working out. And then what event pushes Montag to question the morality of his job and lead him to look for change? So this is an event that happened in the last section of reading that the students would have done, and they should remember, because this was a large turning point for Montag. I mean, apart from his influence by Clarice, he saw this woman get burned alive, choose to die with her book, so he really understood the gravity of the situation. He's kind of wondering himself, what's so important about these books that she would do this? Okay, so after the questionnaire, we're gonna be doing a little activity. That question would probably take about 15-20 minutes. And then they would have about the last 15 minutes to answer these couple questions in this bandbox activity. I would put the students into groups of 2, and then they would all come to the front and grab 2 index cards and some red markers, just because we're going to be talking about like band ideas and stuff like that. And I feel like the red, means like no. And then I will have made like a little decorated box for them to put all of their responses into. So this is just kind of like the basis of the prompt. In Fahrenheit 451, books are banned because they cause discomfort, challenge authority, and create inequality of thought. What types of ideas do you think would be dangerous in a society like this? Step 1, write down a dangerous idea that you think might be banned in Montag's society. Write this on the front of your index card. So this, for example, could be something like happiness can be forced, like, or the parlor walls bring everyone happiness, anything like that. So or like individuality of thought is great. Step 2, they're gonna go ahead and explain why they think that that is something that the government or society would want to suppress, going back to this idea of censorship and calling back to that theme of the book. And then step 3, just to kind of get things a little bit more personal, and also this is going to be working towards their end of the unit project. They're going to have to think of a movie, book, or song from the current day that may have been banned in Montag society. And they'll write this on the second index card. And on the back of that, they'll explain why that would not be justified in that society. So this could be anything that's just like, anything really that's originality of thought. It could have to do with race, gender, anything like that, really. Anything that's kind of controversial. And we have a lot of things like that. So that's actually what is going to lead us into our final project, which is going to be looking at banned books from our time. Because obviously, as crazy as it may be, we still have books being banned to this day. And they're going to do a small research paper about that. So that's what we'll be looking forward to in the future. The students will work on this for about 15 minutes. It's not supposed to be like a really hard activity, just kind of something that they can play around with and toss around ideas with their peers. And then whenever they're finished, they can go ahead and give me the banned ideas, and I'll put them in the little box, and we'll have our banned books or banned box. And then I'll let them know their homework assignment is going to be to read up until page 67, which is part 2. So finish part 1 for homework. Keep filling out the reading guide, and then I will collect their bell ringer as they leave the room, and that will conclude day 3. So I hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you.